The morning air felt cool against Kang Ho's skin as he walked through his grain fields. His forearms moved in steady rhythm, checking the tall plants that swayed gently in the breeze. The Vorthok farmer had worked this land for 20 years, and he knew every corner of his property. That's why the strange metal object near the forest edge caught his attention immediately. Something had crashed here during the night. The twisted wreckage was still warm, with thin streams of smoke rising from cracked panels. Kang Ho approached carefully, his large compound eyes scanning for any signs of danger. His people were peaceful farmers, not warriors, and unexpected visitors usually meant trouble. Through a broken window in the wreckage, he saw movement. Something was trapped inside. Kang Ho used his strong arms to pry open the damaged door, and what he found inside made him step back in shock. The creature was unlike anything he had ever seen. It had only 2 eyes, instead of the many that Vorthok possessed. Its skin was smooth and pale, not covered in the protective shell that kept his own people safe. Thin hair covered its head, and red liquid stained its strange clothing. The being was small and looked very fragile, but it was alive. Kang Ho could see its chest moving up and down as it breathed. One of its arms was bent at an odd angle, clearly broken. Burns covered parts of its exposed skin, and it seemed unconscious from pain or exhaustion. For a long moment, Kang Ho stood frozen. His people had stories about creatures from the stars, most of them warnings about danger and disease. The village elders always taught that unknown species should be reported to the council immediately. Contact with aliens was forbidden without proper approval. Yet looking at this small, injured being, Kang Ho felt something unexpected. The creature reminded him of his own children when they were hurt or scared. Despite its strange appearance, there was something innocent about its sleeping face. It didn't look like a monster or invader. It looked lost and alone, making a decision that would change everything. Kanjo carefully lifted the unconscious alien. It was lighter than he expected, and its body felt warm against his arms. Whatever this creature was, it needed help, and Kanjo couldn't leave it to die in the wreckage. He carried the stranger back to his family compound, a cluster of dome-shaped buildings where his mate Sumin was preparing the morning meal. She dropped her cooking tools when she saw what Kang Ho carried. "What is that thing?" she whispered, her voice filled with concern and curiosity. "I found it in a crashed ship," Kang Ho explained, laying the creature on their sleeping platform. "It's hurt badly. I think it might die if we don't help." Their daughter, Haijin, appeared in the doorway, her young eyes wide with wonder. She had never seen anything like this creature before. "Is it dangerous, father?" Kanjo studied the unconscious being. Its face looked peaceful, almost childlike in sleep. Its hands were empty of weapons, and its body seemed too small and weak to threaten anyone. "I don't think so," he said finally. "I think it's just scared and far from home." Sumin moved closer, her natural compassion overcoming her fear. She had raised 3 children and could recognize suffering when she saw it. "Look at these injuries," she said, pointing to the burns and cuts. "This poor thing has been through something terrible." The family spent the next hour cleaning the creature's wounds with gentle plant medicines. They set its broken arm as carefully as they could and covered it with soft blankets. Throughout the process, the alien remained unconscious, sometimes making small sounds of pain but never waking. "We should tell the village council," Suman said as they finished their medical care. "They need to know about this." Kanjo shook his head. "You know what they'll do. They'll want to study it, or send it away. Some might even want to kill it out of fear. This creature needs time to heal, not questions and examinations. But if the elders find out we're hiding it, ... double quotes, Haijin began. "Then we'll face that problem when it happens," Kang Ho said firmly. "Right now, this being needs our help. We're the only family it has." For 3 days, they cared for the mysterious visitor. In secret, Sumin prepared soft foods and clean water. Hyjin sat by its side, reading stories aloud in their own language. Kongho checked its injuries and changed its bandages. On the fourth day, the creature's eyes opened. They were brown and bright, filled with intelligence and something that looked like gratitude. It tried to speak, making musical sounds that none of them understood. But when Sumin offered water, it drank carefully and made what seemed like thankful noises. The alien looked around the room, taking in its surroundings with obvious curiosity rather than fear. When its gaze met Kongho's compound eyes, it smiled, an expression that somehow translated across species. In that moment, the Vorthok farmer knew he had made the right choice. Whatever this creature was, wherever it had come from, it was now part of his family. They had found each other by chance, but Kongho believed some meetings were meant to happen. This small, strange being had crashed into their lives, and somehow, everything felt like it was about to change for the better. 3 months passed like changing seasons, and the strange creature had become part of daily life in Kongho's household. The alien, who had managed to point to herself and say Mina repeatedly until they understood it was her name, learned their language with amazing speed. Within weeks, she could ask for water and food. Within a month, she was having simple conversations. Mina's injuries healed faster than anyone expected. Her broken arm grew strong again, and the burns on her skin faded to pale marks. But what surprised the family most was how quickly she adapted to their way of life. She watched everything with curious eyes, asking endless questions about their farming methods and daily routines. The first sign that Mina was special came during the rainy season. Heavy storms flooded the lower fields where Kongho grew his most valuable crops. For generations, Vorthok farmers had simply accepted these losses as part of nature's cycle. But Mina studied the flooding patterns and suggested something no one had tried before. "What if you build small walls of dirt?" she asked, drawing pictures in the mud to show her idea. "Make the water flow where you want it to go, not where it wants to go." Kongjo was doubtful, but he had learned to trust Mina's strange ideas. Together, they built raised channels that guided floodwater away from the crops and into storage areas. The next storm brought the same heavy rains, but instead of destroying plants, the water was captured and saved for dry periods. The results were incredible. Not only did they save their crops, but the stored water helped them grow 30% more food than ever before. Other farmers noticed and started asking questions about Kongho's new methods. Mina also introduced something she called crop rotation. Instead of growing the same plants in the same fields every year, she suggested changing what grew where. She explained that different plants took different things from the soil, and by rotating crops, the land stayed healthy longer. "Your fields are like people," she told them. "If a person only eats one kind of food, they get sick. If fields only grow one kind of plant, they get tired too." The village elders, who had been suspicious of the strange alien living with families, slowly began to change their minds. When Mina's farming advice helped the entire community harvest more food than they had in years, even the most cautious voices started to welcome her presence. Elder Jinwoo, who had initially wanted to send Mina away, came to visit one evening. "Your creature has brought good fortune to our village," he admitted to Kongho. "Perhaps the spirits sent her to help us." But Mina was working on something more important than farming improvements. Using pieces from her crashed ship, she had been building a communication device in secret. Late at night, when the family slept, she worked by candlelight to repair circuits and connect wires. Finally, after months of effort, the device worked. Mina listened to signals from space, her face growing more worried with each passing night. The messages she intercepted told a frightening story about something called the hegemony. One evening, Mina asked the village elders to gather, using her translator device, which turned her words into the clicking sounds of Vorthok language. She shared what she had learned. "There are bad people coming," she explained simply. "They have big ships and weapons. They take food from planets and make people work like slaves. Your world grows good food, so they will want to take it. Elder Jinwoo's antennae trembled with worry. How do you know this? Mina showed them her communication device. I listened to their messages. They talk about moving through this part of space. They will be here soon, maybe in 6 months. The elders looked at each other with growing fear. The Vorthok were peaceful farmers who had never fought wars or built weapons. They had no way to defend themselves against alien invaders. What can we do? Asked Elder Suyang, her voice shaking. I will try to call my people, Mina said. Humans are far away, but maybe they will help if they get my message. That night, Mina worked harder than ever on her communication device. She managed to send one powerful signal toward the distant stars where human ships traveled. The message was simple but desperate. One human was trapped on a peaceful world that needed protection. Whether anyone would receive the signal, or if they would care about a single person on a remote farming planet, Mina didn't know. The message would take months to reach human space, and months more for any help to arrive. They might already be slaves of the hegemony by then, as she powered down her device. Mina looked around at the family that had saved her life. Kong-ho still worked late every night, preparing seeds for crops he might never see grow. Sumin hummed traditional songs while she cooked, and Haijin practiced reading with the joy of someone who didn't know their world was about to change. These people had shown her nothing but kindness when they could have left her to die. They had risked their safety to hide her from suspicious neighbors. They had shared their food, their home, and their hearts with a complete stranger. Mina made a silent promise to herself that night. Whatever happened when the hegemony arrived, she would not let them destroy this peaceful world without a fight. Her new family had protected her when she was helpless. Now it was her turn to protect them. The black ships came with the spring rains, blocking out the sun as they descended from the sky. Mina watched from the hidden underground room that Kong-ho had quickly built beneath their grain storage. Through a small opening, she could see the massive vessels landing in the fields where she had once helped plant crops. Commander Tyrok stepped out of the largest ship, his snake-like body covered in dark armor. The Scarith leader's yellow eyes swept across the peaceful farming village with cold satisfaction. Behind him marched rows of soldiers carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The occupation began immediately. Tayrok's voice boomed across the village through loudspeakers, his words translated into the Vorthok language by machines. This world now belongs to the hegemony. You will give us 80% of all food you grow. Young adults will be selected for work assignments on other planets. Anyone who refuses will be executed. Mina's heart broke as she watched her adoptive family's faces fill with terror. The gentle Vorthok had never experienced violence like this. They were farmers and storytellers, not fighters. The concept of war was as foreign to them as their kindness had once been to the galaxy. Within days, the hegemony's control was complete. Soldiers patrolled the fields, counting every grain and vegetable. They built a command post in the center of the village and installed monitoring devices everywhere. The Vorthok were forced to work longer hours for less food, while their children were examined like livestock to determine their usefulness. The breaking point came when Haijin was selected for conscription. The young Vorthok's intelligence and quick learning made her valuable for technical work in distant factories. Mina watched through her hidden periscope as soldiers put metal bands around Higgins' wrists, marking her for transport off-world. That night, Mina made her decision. She could no longer hide while her family suffered. Using knowledge from her crashed ship's computer, she began a careful campaign of sabotage. She waited until the darkest hours before dawn, then crept out to cause specific types of damage. Communication towers developed mysterious electrical problems. Fuel storage containers became contaminated with local bacteria that made the fuel useless. Transport vehicles suffered computer failures that left them stranded in the fields. Each act of sabotage was small and looked like equipment failure, rather than enemy action. More importantly, Mina began teaching selected Vorthok the arts of resistance. She showed Kongho how to hide food supplies in false walls and underground chambers. She taught Sumin how to communicate warnings using traditional farming signals that looked innocent to outside observers. Move like the wind through grass, she told them. Be everywhere and nowhere. Make them think their machines are simply breaking down. The Vorthok were natural students for this type of resistance. Their deep knowledge of the land helped them move unseen through fields and forests. Their community bonds made them excellent at sharing information without being detected. Soon, a network of quiet resistance spread throughout the farming villages. Commander Terok's frustration grew with each passing week. His equipment failed constantly, supply shipments went missing, and his soldiers reported feeling watched by invisible enemies. The primitive farming world was somehow fighting back, but his scans showed no organized military force. These creatures are supposed to be pacifists, he hissed to his second-in-command. They grow food and tell stories. They don't sabotage military equipment. But the problems continued. Weapons would malfunction during patrols, computer systems would crash and lose important data. Food supplies would spoil overnight despite being stored in sealed containers. Each incident was small, but together they created a constant drain on hegemony resources. Mina's resistance network grew bolder. They learned to steal small amounts of fuel and medicine, hiding these supplies for future use. They developed ways to slow down crop harvesting without being caught. Most importantly, they began helping conscripted Vorthok escape before being shipped off-world. The turning point came when Kongho was captured during a patrol sweep. The soldiers found him carrying hidden grain to a family whose food had been confiscated. Commander Terok decided to make an example that would end the resistance once and for all. Attention, inhabitants of this world, his voice boomed across every village. We know someone is organizing these acts of sabotage. You have 20 hours to surrender this person to us. If you refuse, we will execute one village elder every day until the saboteur is found. Mina watched from her hiding place as soldiers dragged Kongho to the village center and forced him to kneel. The kind farmer who had saved her life was now going to die because of her actions. Around the square, other elders were gathered under guard, their faces showing fear, but also determination. That evening, Mina made the hardest decision of her life. She could not let innocent people die for her resistance activities. The voice had protected her when she was helpless, and now she had brought danger to their doorstep. As the sun set over the occupied village, Mina prepared to leave her hiding place. She would surrender herself to save Kongho and the other elders. It meant certain death or worse, but it was the only way to protect the family that had shown her such kindness. But as she reached for the hidden door, her communication device suddenly crackled to life with an impossible sound, a human voice speaking her own language, calling her name across the vast darkness of space. Captain Junasio Park stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the message that had traveled across space for 8 long months. The communication was weak and broken, but the voice was definitely human. A woman named Mina was trapped on a distant planet, asking for help to save an alien species that had protected her. "Sir, we're approaching the Kepler system," his officer Young-hee reported. "Sensors show multiple hegemony ships in orbit around the 4th planet." Park studied the tactical display with growing concern. 12 enemy warships surrounded the planet, plus ground forces and defensive platforms. His single destroyer was fast and well-armed, but terribly outnumbered. Any reasonable military commander would retreat and call for backup, but something about Mina's desperate message haunted him. She wasn't just asking for rescue. She was begging someone to save an entire species of peaceful farmers who had sheltered her when they could have left her to die. On the planet below, Mina's situation had become desperate. 3 days earlier, She had walked into the hegemony command post and surrendered herself to save Kong Ho's life. Commander Tyrok's yellow eyes had widened with surprise when he realized his mysterious saboteur was a human female. Interesting, the Scarith commander had hissed. A human, so far from your territory. This suggests either an advanced scouting mission, or that your species has spread further than our intelligence indicated. I'm a scientist, Mina replied through her translator device. My ship was attacked by pirates. These people saved my life and nursed me back to health. And in return, you taught them to resist us. Tyrok's forked tongue flicked the air thoughtfully. Your people have a reputation for emotional attachments. You will serve as excellent bait. The Scarith commander's plan was simple, but cruel. He would use Mina to lure any human rescue force into a trap, then destroy them to learn more about human military capabilities. Meanwhile, he would continue executing Vorthok elders until the planet's resistance collapsed completely. But Mina's friends had not given up on her. Hai Jin, who had escaped conscription during the confusion of Mina's surrender, organized a desperate rescue attempt. Using the tunnels and hiding techniques Mina had taught them, a group of young Vorthok managed to break into the detention facility. The rescue was chaotic and costly. Mina escaped, but 6 village elders were killed in Tyrok's brutal retaliation. As she fled through the grain fields where Kong Ho had first found her, Mina's heart was heavy with guilt. Her presence had brought nothing but suffering to these kind people. Then her hidden communication device crackled to life with the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. Dr. Mina Kim, this is Captain Park of the Terran Federation, Destroyer, Relentless. We received your message. Help is coming. Mina's hands shook as she responded. Captain, you have to understand the situation. There are 12 hegemony warships here. This is a suicide mission. Maybe. Park's voice was calm but determined. But we don't abandon our people, and we don't let anyone harm those who showed kindness to humans. Above the planet's atmosphere, the Relentless dropped out of warp drive like a ghost materializing from darkness. The Federation destroyer was smaller than the hegemony ships, but it carried advanced weapons, and the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, angry humans protecting their family. Commander Tyrok received the alert moments later. A human ship has entered the system, his tactical officer reported. Single destroyer-class vessel. Shall we destroy it immediately? No. Tyrok's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Let them approach. I want to capture their ship intact and interrogate the crew. This is exactly what I hoped would happen. But Captain Park had no intention of following a predictable attack pattern. Using the planet's magnetic field to mask his approach, he brought the Relentless in from an unexpected angle. The first the hegemony knew of his presence was when 3 of their ships suddenly lost power from precisely targeted electromagnetic pulse strikes. On the surface, Mina coordinated the final phase of her resistance plan. At exactly the moment Park began his attack, every Vorthok farming community on the planet executed the same devastating strategy. They destroyed their own crops. Grain fields burst into flames. Storage silos were emptied, and their contents scattered to the wind. Processing facilities were sabotaged beyond repair. In a matter of hours, the agricultural infrastructure that had taken generations to build was reduced to ash and smoke. Commander Tyrok watched his carefully managed resource extraction operation collapse in real time. Without the food production, his occupation force faced starvation. Worse, the coordinated timing of the destruction showed that the primitive farmers had developed a planet-wide resistance network. The space battle was fierce but brief. The Relentless used its superior speed and technology to disable enemy ships faster than they could respond effectively. Most importantly, Park's gunners destroyed the command ship's communication arrays, preventing them from calling for reinforcements. Faced with a damaged fleet, ruined supply lines, and the prospect of fighting both a human warship and an entire planet of determined farmers, Tyrok made the only rational choice: The hegemony fleet withdrew, taking their wounded and abandoning their occupation as the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace. Mina stood in the field where her journey had begun. Around her, the Vorthok people emerged from hiding to see their empty sky. They had sacrificed everything to win their freedom, but they were free. Captain Park watched the last hegemony ship disappear into the darkness of space, but he knew the real work was just beginning. The planet below was free, but it was also starving. The Vorthok had destroyed their own crops to defeat the invaders, and now they faced a harsh winter with almost no food. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the surface," Young-hee reported. "Dr. Kim is requesting immediate humanitarian assistance." Park nodded grimly. Military victories were simple compared to rebuilding a civilization. "Begin emergency. Supply drops. Everything we can spare. Medical supplies, food rations, building materials." On the planet's surface, Mina worked tirelessly to coordinate relief efforts. The Vorthok communities were scattered across the continent, many of them cut off from communication after months of occupation. She traveled from village to village with Captain Park's landing teams, assessing damage and organizing aid distribution. Met her at the ruins of their family compound. The hegemony had destroyed most of the buildings during their final retreat, but the underground hiding places remained intact. The farmer's compound eyes showed exhaustion, but also something Mina had never seen before: pride. "We fought back," he said simply. "My people have never fought anyone before, but we learned. We stood up for ourselves." "You did more than that," Mina replied, embracing her adoptive father. "You saved yourselves and showed the galaxy that peaceful people can be strong when they need to be." The recovery process took months. Federation supply ships arrived regularly, bringing food, medicine, and construction materials. But more importantly, they brought hope. Young Vorthok, who had been taken as slaves, were returned home. Families separated by the occupation were reunited. Hygiene had grown during the dark months. The young Vorthok who had once been selected for conscription now worked as a translator and liaison between human and Vorthok reconstruction teams. Her quick mind and brave spirit made her a natural leader among her generation. "The humans work differently than we do," she explained to the village elders. "They plan for problems before they happen. They build things to last through disasters. We should learn these methods." The formal ceremonies began in early spring, exactly 1 year after Mina's escape pod had crashed in Kang Ho's field. Representatives from the Terran Federation arrived on a diplomatic vessel, carrying documents that would change the course of galactic history. Ambassador Chen Wei, a distinguished woman with silver hair and kind eyes, stood before the gathered Vorthok leaders. Behind her, Captain Park wore his dress uniform, while Mina served as translator for the historic moment. "The Terran Federation officially recognizes Kepler-4 for to be as a protected world," Ambassador Chen announced. "We pledge to defend your people and your way of life. In return, we hope to learn from your agricultural knowledge and peaceful wisdom." Elder Jinwoo stepped forward, his aged hands trembling with emotion. "For generations, we have lived in isolation, believing we were alone in the universe. Today, we discover we have family among the stars." The treaty signing was simple but meaningful. Trade agreements were established that would benefit both species. The Vorthok would share their advanced farming techniques, while humans would provide technology and protection. More importantly, cultural exchange programs were created to foster understanding between the two peoples. But the most important ceremony happened that evening, in the same field where Mina had first been found. Kang Ho's extended family gathered in a circle, following traditions that had existed for thousands of years. Su Min carried the ceremonial shell necklace that marked formal adoption into the clan. "You came to us as a stranger," Kang Ho said, his voice carrying across the quiet field. "You were lost and hurt, far from your home. We gave you shelter because it was right, expecting nothing in return. Mina knelt in the center of the circle, surrounded by faces that had become more dear to her than her own blood relatives. These people had risked everything to protect her, and in the end, she had been able to protect them in return. But you gave us more than we ever gave you, Suman continued, placing the necklace around Mina's neck. You brought wisdom, courage, and hope. You showed us that we were stronger than we knew. Most importantly, you brought us a family among the stars. The ceremony concluded with traditional songs and sharing of food. Captain Park and his crew were invited to participate, creating the first formal cultural exchange between humans and Vorthok. Children from both species played together in the fields, their laughter echoing across the peaceful landscape. Later that night, Mina sent her final report to Earth's command. She had been assigned as the permanent Federation ambassador to Kepler-44, to be a position that felt more like coming home than accepting a job. The Vorthok people asked for nothing when they sheltered a single lost human, she wrote. They expected no reward for their kindness. Yet in protecting them, humanity has gained something invaluable, proof that the bonds of family can reach across the galaxy itself. Word of the Vorthok alliance spread quickly through nearby star systems. Other peaceful species, who had hidden from galactic conflicts for generations, began reaching out to human space. They had learned a simple but powerful truth. Humans would fight as fiercely for their adopted families as for their own children. Mina stood in the rebuilt field, where her new life had begun, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere among those distant lights, other lost souls might be waiting for rescue. Other families might be hoping for protection. She smiled, knowing that humanity would answer when they called.